All right. As far as I know, we're all here to make Avalanche the best mainnet in our industry, right? For me, Avalanche is a mainnet infrastructure that strikes a delicate balance between originality and respect for the existing industry standards. Its consensus algorithm, the Snowman, is very, very original in that it provides advantages in terms of scalability, security, as well as decentralization. At the same time, it shows respect in the existing industry standards in that in terms of its modular blockchain structure, as well as its active support for the EVM. Moreover, it provides a lot of freedom for the subnet developers, making it one of the best mainnets in terms of entry for subnet developers compared to other networks. The problem is that not many people know about the advantages of Avalanche network. In reality, it's actually quite challenging to understand the subtle technical advantages of Avalanche. The reality is, a lot of people invest in crypto assets before they understand the underlying subtle details. So I often hear from people around me, they're telling me they're going to buy Ethereum on the exchange, and then they end up buying Ethereum Classic. And I asked them why. And they thought it's just cheaper for the same value. So the main point I want to talk about today is how we can spread the technical merits of Avalanche to the public. That's the main topic. But before I begin, let me introduce myself. Hola, my name is Linhan. I'm from South Korea, and I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Xangle. Since 2018, we have been working really hard to create a more transparent and sustainable crypto ecosystem. Specifically, recently we have been focusing on creating fundamental metrics that reveals the overall health status of a certain mainnet infrastructure. We're also providing on-chain data to revealing those those status, as well as research materials to the public so that everybody can understand the overall health status of a certain network. In addition, we are connecting companies that are genuine in terms of adopting Web3 into their business with those mainnets that have solid foundations. Last year, summer, in 2022 adoption conference that we were hosts, we invited the most robust players from Web 2 and Web 3 together for them to learn about each other. And among the guests, there were SK, which is one of the largest conglomerates in South Korea, as well as Avalanche. And recently, they have decided to work together. And I want to say congratulations for both, because it's a big step forward in terms of the ecosystem of Avalanche, as well as for SK. And since last year summer, our relationship with Avalanche has begun, and it has evolved into us providing on-chain data for the subnets that the Avalanche Foundation values the most. And yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me here. I think the atmosphere is great, the weather is great, and I'm really enjoying it here, and thank you for having me here today. So let's get back to our main point. I would like to discuss how we can spread the genuine merits of the Avalanche to the public. In order for Avalanche to get well known, we need a large number of investors who understand and love Avalanche. Specifically, a fandom is needed who really believe in the long-term value of Avalanche, as well as who can really passionately spread those ideas to other people. What would be the one absolute necessity for those? What would be the one absolute necessity required to align such holders? It should be a concrete evidence that supports confidence that the value of Avalanche will rise in the long run. In the stock market, there is a concept called intrinsic value. And many long-term investors rely on this intrinsic value to gain confidence in the long-term value of a certain asset. And there are various ways to form intrinsic value. For example, if a company creates a lot of revenue, makes a lot of profits, and distributes those profits to the shareholders, intrinsic value is accumulated. Or if a company buys a certain asset and the price of those assets will rise in a certain period of time, then another type of intrinsic value accumulates. So far, in the crypto world, we have deliberately avoided talking about intrinsic value. The main reason we have avoided this is because we did not want to be classified as securities. If it's classified as securities, it would be really hard to build a decent Web3 token economy due to the strict security laws that has been in place for over 100 years. Isn't it ironic that the regulation which should protect investors function as an obstacle for crypto assets to accrue intrinsic value? It's a big irony, in my opinion. In fact, the market for the majority of projects over the past few years has been driven by vague expectations for the future, mere positioning in the market, and short-term momentum based on positive news rather than a solid fundamental intrinsic value. Many projects aim for short-term profits from selling tokens, and speculators rushed into buying those tokens just to sell them at the peak of the price. However, as time passed, most projects that were only focused on short-term gains disappeared. And for the surviving projects, metrics based on intrinsic value, like the TVL, total value logged, or the protocol revenue, or the number of users in the network, began more and more attention. As the ecosystem of the mainnet evolves, the intrinsic value will stem from its expanding ecosystem. Of course, since there is no clarity in terms of regulation yet, direct dividends cannot be issued yet. However, healthy projects like Ethereum or Avalanche are burning a portion of their protocol revenue to create a similar effect, and they're also trying to secure intrinsic value in terms of the demand perspective by increasing the long-term staking ratio. We at Xangle provide a service that measures the inherent value of the network through our 80 on-chain fundamental metrics. And in case of the Avalanche, we offer dashboards for each subnet. Currently, DFK and Daxalord are supported, and 5 more subnets are to be supported till the year end. So this is the dashboard that we offer, and I put on a link above so that if you're interested, you can browse it, and all those data are all for free. However, there is something that we need to be cautious. This is a graph of the past 2 years' revenue on the Avalanche C chain. Based on this indicator alone, it could be interpreted that the Avalanche network suddenly deteriorated at a certain point. But in reality, This result aligns precisely with the direction that the Avalanche Foundation is working on and put a lot of effort into. What does this mean? Why is the Avalanche Foundation working towards a direction that undermines its inherent value? To understand this, we need to first understand the structure of Avalanche subnets. Avalanche aims to establish itself as a competitive infrastructure that provides high bandwidth network to developers at affordable prices. At the center are subnets, and Avalanche developers are putting a lot of efforts into providing a competitive subnet environment. In particular, they also aim to evolve into a more open ecosystem by giving developers a lot of freedom. In particular, they allow transaction fees within the subnets to be replaced with the subnet's own native tokens. For example, inside the DFK subnet, DFK tokens are allowed to be used as payments for transaction fees. The Avalanche Foundation is encouraging competitive dApps on the C chain to diversify into subnets. While on the C chain, the transaction fee revenues are generated in the native AVAX tokens, but once these dApps succeed and transition into subnets, these fee revenues suddenly disappear. In the short term, this is bad to the inherent value of Avalanche. The reason I say short term is because in the long run, the outcome might be quite different. Imagine that this open infrastructure environment grows into a scalable environment where you have hundreds, thousands, or maybe tens of thousands of subnets. Validators within each subnet must essentially obtain qualifications for the primary networks, which means you have to stake at least 2,000 AVAX. As tremendous number of subnets operate, and among them large-scale subnets emerge, the demand for AVAX staking is bound to grow. Moreover, the number of subnets without their own tokens using DeFi on the C chain might also grow. That could also drive more demand for AVAX. So, in the long run, as subnets scale out, the long-term value of AVAX will also rise. It's a little complicated story. And I noticed that even AVAX holders often fail to accurately understand the whole overall picture. And in reality, while subnets are being activated, researchers who superficially understand this would say that the network's performance is poor, which is a problem. So let's discuss a solution to this problem. It would be helpful for the foundation to select indicators that best demonstrates the growth of the ecosystem and communicate those indicators to the community. So before holders misunderstand by looking at the revenue indicators, I would advise to announce and repeatedly emphasize that the subnet growth indicators are the most important ones from the foundation perspective. So let me repeat this. I would advise to announce and repeatedly emphasize that the subnet growth indicators are the most important ones from the foundation point of view. At Xangle, we aim to go beyond simply listing standardized indicators. We want to show those indicators that best reflect the deeply understood Avalanche ecosystem. We believe that on-chain fundamental indicators can serve as a communication tool that can unite community members to look into the same direction. Once again, on-chain indicators are very effective communication tool, and I think mainnets who can utilize those tools very well, and those mainnet who can, will differentiate inevitably in the long run in terms of cohesion within the community. We're also doing our best to ensure that many investors, many developers, And also, many leading researchers can properly understand the essence of the Avalanche ecosystem through our in-depth research report. Our research report can be found on our Xangle website. I put a link above the screen. For reference, our Xangle research report is being distributed through many, many channels, including CoinMarketCap, and is recognized for its quality. And lastly, I hope to form a closer relationship with the Avalanche ecosystem throughout this event. And ultimately, we wish for the real values that the Avalanche has been working on for a long time to become widely known to the world. God bless Avalanche. Thank you very much.